各位好，欢迎收看33高峰会，我是 Clarence 张梦华。在上期的节目中呢，我们和移民部长以及反对党的移民事务发言人就新西兰整体的移民政策以及父母签证增长版进行了一个深入对话。那今天呢，我们将继续聚焦在移民这一备受关注的话题。上个月的时候呢，一则关于保护移民工人的重大政策悄然发生了变更，移民剥削保护工签 MEPV 呢是被意外的收紧了。这个签证呢，最初是由工党执政时期推出的，签证时间为半年，初衷就是帮助受剥削的移民工人迅速地摆脱困境，同时呢，可以保障他们在新西兰境内合法寻找工作的权益。更为人性化的是呢，如果在签证期的6个月时间没有找到合适的工作呢，移民工人还能获得一次续签的机会。然而呢，现在一夜之间把这个续签的机会直接砍掉了。这个背后有着怎样的考量？让我们来听听移民部长的回答。
One of the good things that the previous government set up was this migrant exploitation visa. So if you find yourself in a position where you need to leave quickly because you're being exploited, then it was really difficult to get out of those situations. So there's now a new visa called the Migrant Exploitation Protection Visa, MEPV, and it allows you to switch to an open work visa. And that gives you the ability to look for work. For 6 months, it's an open visa to remain in New Zealand, to look for work, to get back, working with somebody else. They bought that visa in and then they bought a second one in to automatically give you another 6 months. So there are people out there who are here for up to a year with no job, being in a very vulnerable situation and actually being potentially exploited again because we're putting them in a really exploitative position. So we've just said, look, 6 months is a perfectly reasonable time to be able to get out of the situation you're in and find another job. 6 months is a good period of time to find employment. And then if there are circumstances where you might be just about to get a job or something's coming, you can always apply for an extension with Immigration New Zealand. We have that ability to give extensions where there are circumstances that require it. But just having another 6 months, leaving people here for a whole year in a very vulnerable situation without work is just, it wasn't great. And I think 6 months is reasonable because, as you and I both know, the economy's turned and there is more and more unemployment and Kiwis are finding it tough to get jobs as well. And having someone here for that long period of time without work and potentially being able to be exploited again is just not a good situation.
站在执政党的角度上来看呢，这个考量是完全合理的啊。但当我们谈论移民剥削保护工签的时候呢，就不得不正视一个问题：6个月，对于一个被剥削、处于弱势的移民工人来说呢，可能仅仅只是一个开始。想象一下，您历经艰辛来到新西兰，然后遭到了职场剥削，不仅要处理心理创伤，还要寻找新的工作机会。语言障碍，再加上法律知识的匮乏、心理恢复期等等，这些都是需要时间的。6个月真的足够吗？而且现在形势也一般啊，可能就是说真的需要一些额外的时间。那这样的话怎么办
？I think 6 months is a perfectly reasonable time to find a job. And if you can't find a job in 6 months, it indicates that there is no job for you and it is time to leave.
大家也许可以听到我最后说了句 OK。其实我当时听到这句话的时候是震惊的。一个移民国家的移民部长怎么能说出这么冷漠的话呢？但是呢，现在经过了一番这种理性的思考之后呢，我也明白了他，或者说明白了政府的思考的角度。您想一下，新西兰这个只有500万人口的岛国，也面临着经济恢复、处理有限资源等这些严峻的挑战。在这样的背景下呢，每一个移民的名额、每一份社会的资源都是弥足珍贵的。我们是移民国家，但是确实不能无限度的包容和等待，而是必须用最理性的方式来配置有限的社会资源。那不能为社会做贡献的移民，从长远和整体利益来看，确实不应该继续停留。这不仅仅是一个经济的问题，更是一个国家可持续发展的战略选择。残酷吗？也许是，但是呢，这种残酷背后是一个理性政府、理性国家对资源的审慎分配。说到移民国家啊，新西兰目前的净移民人数一直在下降。隔不久你就会看到统计局的数据显示净移民人数减少，然后又破了纪录这样的报道。甚至现在各种报告分析都在说，明年新西兰的净移民人数呢就会达到0这样一个冰冷的数字。而且呢，这个真的是关乎到新西兰这个国家的未来的。一个以移民立国的国家，净移民人数呢可能接近于0，那移民部长是怎么看待的呢？
No, my officials don't think that is going to happen. I mean, It's the economic cycle, right? We've seen it before after the global financial crisis when things slow down and Kiwis leave, and that's what's happening at the moment. Kiwis are going elsewhere because the economy, after 6 years of a Labor government, is not great. While we're rebuilding it, we do see people flowing out of New Zealand, and we do see the number of migrants coming to New Zealand slow down because there isn't the jobs, right? That's why we've moved the protection visa from 12 to 6 months. There aren't the jobs out there for them. And so that's why it's just an economic cycle, right? So in the peak, we get huge migrant flows, and in the lows, we get, not as many. My officials have said to me they don't think it's going to get to zero. I don't think it will either. We're also doing some things to make sure that we are attracting highly skilled migrants and also students as well. And that will help our numbers. The other thing that'll help our numbers is the parent visa. So when we introduce the parent visa, that counts towards our numbers because they're here for more than a year, right? So I don't think that will go down to zero. We are working really hard on pathways to residence and how to attract really skilled workers by making it easier for them to come here, easier for them to get residence, and actually creating new pathways to residence for skilled people who currently can't get residence. So with all of those changes that are coming and with our focus on getting more international students here, I think actually it will bottom out, but it won't get to zero, and then it will pick up again as the economy starts to pick up.
还有一个说法呢，就是国家党呢经常说要吸引高技能人才，这话说的也没有毛病。但是呢，新西兰的经济运转何尝不是依赖着那些被轻视的低技能移民工人呢？农场、餐饮、水果采摘，本地人往往不屑于从事这些工作，而这些工作对社会运转又是必不可少的。那哪一个行业不是靠这些被政策边缘化的移民所支撑的呢？那政府想要吸引高技能人才，那些所谓的低技能工人怎么办？让我们来听听反对党的移民事务发言人与移民部长是怎么看的。
I don't really like to talk about, to be honest, Clarence, talk about high quality or low quality, because migrants are people with lives, with dreams and hopes and aspirations. Most of the people who come to New Zealand to work, they're looking to make a better future for their families, to educate their children, to live a good life. And so it's true that our economy needs skills in certain areas. And there are certain industries. If you look at our dairy industry, for example, it's after tourism, dairy is one of our biggest export earners. Now, over the last decade or so, the dairy industry has become extremely reliant on mostly workers from the Philippines coming into work. Now, these are not high-skilled jobs particularly. They're often hard jobs. Out in the countryside, the pay is not very high, and it's hard physical work. You're getting up at 4 a.m. every morning. This is an example of where an industry is, we are completely reliant on as a country. We needed workers, and they came from the Philippines. They're not high-skilled workers, but they are valuable workers. Mm-hmm. Look at our healthcare sector, Clarence. You couldn't run our health system right now without people who were born overseas, migrants. And yep, a lot of highly skilled physicians, doctors, and nurses. And we've been very lucky to recruit those people to come here and be part of our New Zealand health system. So yep, we need skilled people, but we also need young people for the reasons I mentioned before, the demographics of our population. And there are some industries where Kiwis, for whatever reason, there aren't enough Kiwis here who want to do jobs in that industry, and therefore we have to rely on migrant workers or people who come to New Zealand to work. And I think agriculture, the wine industry, seafood processing, there are other examples where we are highly reliant on overseas workers.
It's a balance. But if you look back to 2017, the bulk of the people coming in were skill level 1 to 3. And a smaller amount was skill level 4 to 5, which is your lower skill. If you look now, under the last government, completely shifted. All low skill and very few high skill. That is bad for productivity. That's not the right balance. So we are looking to change those pathways so we're attracting more highly skilled people because it's good for our economy, it's good for productivity, it's better for wage growth. We know, though, that, of course, there are certain places in New Zealand, certain industries, certain export industries that are important to us, like dairy, that need lower skilled workers. So getting that balance right is really important. So the work, again, we're doing in the AEWV work visa space is exactly that. That's why I've prioritised it as well for the economy, to make sure that it's a bit more flexible. So we're, rolling out the red carpet and really trying to attract those highly skilled migrants, but also where we need those lower skills in certain regions and certain sectors of New Zealand, that we're being more flexible and saying, actually, yes, we can see, in Southland, unemployment's very low, and you need low skilled workers. How do we be more flexible? But the other thing we've also got to remember is we have an extra 50,000 people on the unemployment benefit. And it's really important, especially for young people, that we get them into work. So if you are on the benefit before you're 20, you are on it on average for 17 years. Now, Louise Upston, Minister Upston, is doing a huge amount of work, as you know, in that benefit space to say, actually, it's your responsibility to look for work. And if you do not look for work and if you do not take that job, there will be sanctions on your benefit. So it's also important from my perspective that there is that balance to make sure that we are putting Kiwis first. We have that responsibility because they're our kids, they're our neighbours, and it's important that we put them first and give them the shot, but also acknowledging that there are some areas of New Zealand where there is low unemployment or we can't find Kiwis to do the job. So getting that balance right. I'm literally trying to land a jumbo jet on a 10-cent coin in between those two competing things, businesses who need workers and making sure we're getting those young people a chance in life. So it's a really delicate balance and it's not easy, I can tell you that.
好吧，也希望政府能够达到一个平衡。我个人有时候也总感觉，就是新西兰这个平衡呢，就是一会儿工党执政，一会儿国家党来执政，来勉强维持一个平衡的。毕竟很多时候你的政策那就是全是反着我来的，从而才能达到这样一个平衡。那今天节目的最后呢，我们问到移民部长以及反对党的移民事务发言人有关世界局势的一些问题。那我们都知道，在工党执政时期宣布了一个对于乌克兰裔新西兰人的家人这样的一种特殊签证。几年过去了，世界形势变得更加复杂与不安。现在的政府应不应该效仿工党，给加沙地区提供一个人道主义的签证呢？
We look at every single situation separately. Every situation has its own and different conditions and different things happening. The reason that I think the previous government, and we supported them, brought in the visa for the Ukrainians was because we were completely unable to take refugees from that region. We can take refugees, not from Gaza, but we can take them once they've left Gaza. We can take refugees and they can be part of our quota. So that's one just difference to give you an idea of why we make different decisions in different parts of the world. We made a different decision in Afghanistan because we had an obligation to those people who worked for us because we promised them that they would be safe. So we make different decisions depending on different parts of the world and what the different conditions are. Now, Gaza is just, it's a terrible, terrible situation, and most of the people still cannot get out. We've had a number of people who put applications in to come to New Zealand they're still there, even though we've granted them. They're still there, they can't get out. So it's a really delicate situation that we're continuing to monitor, but the view of Cabinet when I took proposals to Cabinet was to keep the visa settings as they are for now, but we'll keep monitoring them.
Yeah, so Labor supports the idea of creating a special visa for the families of Kiwis, Palestinian Kiwis, who are trapped in Gaza, who want to get out of their war zone and take shelter in New Zealand. And when we were in government, we did this for the Ukrainian people who were fleeing the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And we provided a special visa that allowed their family in New Zealand to sponsor them, to look after them for a period of time so they could take shelter. And I think for so many New Zealanders, so many communities, they come originally from countries that at any one time might be at a war, a civil war, a humanitarian crisis, a human rights crisis. I think about the people from Afghanistan, for example, in this situation, people from Myanmar in Southeast Asia, which has got a very hot civil war going on. They would love to have the chance. They feel terrible that their close family are in a war zone, suffering terribly, and they would love the chance to bring those family to safety in New Zealand. And just as we have a refugee quota in New Zealand, we have 1,500 people a year who come to us through the United Nations High Commission for Refugees in a highly organized international program where we bring refugees here. I think we should also have a special visa alongside that so that New Zealanders of all different ethnic communities have the chance, when their family members are caught up in a war, to bring them to shelter here, to bring them to safety. And the Ukraine special visa is a very good model that we developed. And all we need to do is put a quota on it, so many hundred per year, and make it available on the basis of criteria for people coming from countries who are at war or suffering a terrible human rights crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I think that would be a really great thing to do. But immediately, in relation to Gaza, this minister and this government, they could do the right thing and provide a special visa to help people escape Gaza and come to their families in New Zealand. We can see on our screens, every day, how appalling the catastrophe is in Gaza. Please help those people to come to safety.
其实，在我们采访的过后呢，世界的局势进一步发生了恶化。黎巴嫩与以色列的冲突升级，叙利亚的政权突然也倒塌。很多时候，甚至让人会想到一个非常无奈的现实：真的还有人在关心加沙吗？一句希望世界和平，短短的6个字，原来实现起来真的非常的难。那在我们与 Phil Twyford 采访的最后呢，问到了他有什么想对华社说的话。他的回答呢，有一个让我意想不到的话题。
What I would like to say, Clarence, and perhaps we could have a conversation about this another day and really get into the issue. But one of the issues that I've been working on recently is a foreign policy issue on behalf of the Labor Party, really working out our response to this government's desire to join the AUKUS military alliance, which is with Australia, the UK, and the US, which is essentially an anti-China military pact. It's a move by the United States, supported by its close military allies, to build a closer military relationship in Asia to really deter and contain the growing influence of China. As China becomes wealthier, as it builds up its military capability, and it has a more high-profile presence in the Asia-Pacific region. And so this issue, this foreign policy issue, is now, I think, probably the most important foreign policy issue facing New Zealand right now. America wants to compete with China to say who will be the dominant power in the Asia-Pacific region. It's Labor's view that going down a road of militarization and building up an alliance against China, we don't believe that's in the best interests of New Zealand. We value our relationship with China, including our trade relationship, but also the people-to-people connections we have. And we understand what an important and significant player China is, both in the Asia-Pacific region and now globally. So we favour an approach to foreign policy where the great powers cooperate and negotiate with each other. We don't want them to go to war. So I'll leave that with you. I think it's a very important foreign policy issue. And I know that many people in the Chinese community in New Zealand will have a view about this. And I would be interested in hearing more from the community about this. And I hope perhaps we could discuss it some more at a later date.
当然了，毕竟 Phil Twyford 是工党在外交领域的副发言人，把这件事说出来呢也是合理的。所以基于不对等的原则，我们没有问到 Erica 相同的外交领域的问题，不过确实问到了他对华社想要说的话。
Yeah, look, I want to say that Nancy Liu is working very hard for you, can I say? She is an incredible MP and we're so lucky to have her. And she is constantly feeding back to me the views of the Chinese community. She's really in touch and I just want you to know that, and your viewers to know that she is constantly feeding back to me, and I know the frustrations around the parent visa and I feel them too, because I want to be able to do everything at once, immediately. And immigration keeps saying to me, Minister, you have to slow down. We can only do one thing at once. And so it's frustrating to me as well, but we will get there. It's on the plan for next year, and I want to make sure that we get the visa right, that we are consulting on it, and that the visa conditions are right, so that people can have their family join them here in New Zealand and come and go as they please.
在这里呢，我也想借此机会来对国会议员路南 Nancy 说声感谢啊！正是因为有了 Nancy 呢，才使得我们高峰会的节目可以成型。非常感谢她在帮助我们联系总理、部长以及总结政府政策上面对于华社所做出的贡献。好的，那到这里呢，我们有关移民专题的节目呢就全部结束了。那正好呢，当您看到本期节目的时候，移民部长 Erica Stanford 还官宣了针对认证雇主工签 AEWV 的改革。内容呢就包括，比如说取消中位数的工资门槛，将移民工作经验要求呢从3年减少至2年，同时呢还推出新的季节性签证通道，帮助雇主填补技能空缺等等。那部长说呢，这些变化呢会在明年分4个阶段来实施，第1个阶段呢就会在1月份实行。那么处理完 AEWV 是不是就意味着这个父母签证增强版就是他明年开年的首要任务了呢？我们也会为您持续的关注。好的，感谢大家收看本期的33高峰会，不要忘了点赞、订阅、分享，一键3连。我是张慕华，我们下期见。